Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto married with female Gaara, part 2, subscribe if you enjoy the video, let's start the story. Gaara resisted the urge to groan as Naruto dragged him outside. He was married, Naruto was Hokage, and Gaara was done with ceremonies and pleasantries. He had been planning to sneak off and get out of the horrid wedding dress at the first opportunity, but Naruto seemed keen on keeping him around. And considering the same crowd that had witnessed the entire embarrassment was following them, Gaara couldn't risk attacking the clingy blonde in case he caused an incident. And furthermore, much to the Ritide's dismay, the grass was still wet. Despite the fact that it was past noon. Gaara scowled down at the springy carpet of green and curled his bare toes uncomfortably. He hated getting his feet wet. Naruto was still grinning as he stopped and turned in the middle of the church courtyard. Colorful streamers fluttered from the trees, long buffet tables of appetizers and treats lined the shadows, a raised platform supplied a smooth floor for dancing. And butterflies flitted between the flowers in the garden surrounding the yard. Raising his free hand into the air, Naruto proclaimed, "Woo. Partay." Gaara sighed as the crowd replied with a cheer and was soon swarming around them to fill the courtyard. Gaara hated crowds. He hated parties. He hated wearing a dress with no shoes in the middle of said hated crowd during said hated party. However, Gaara's internal hate-a-thon was interrupted as a familiar arm slid around his waist. The previous Kazekage lifted his eyes to scowl at the blonde invading his personal space bubble. "Hey there, darling, for my wife, you're not looking happy enough." Gaara sighed and resisted the urge to roll his eyes. He would have replied with a properly scathing comment had not the blonde's attention been stolen away first. "Way to go, Naruto. I never knew you had it in you." Naruto turned as a hand clapped down on his shoulder and he blinked at the masked man who was giving him the thumbs up. Never had what? But they ignored Naruto's confusion. Gaara definitely didn't like that lecherous twinkle as Kakashi bent towards him. My, Naruto, you certainly have a good eye. I never would have imagined this little Ritide was such a tasty little thing under all those Suna robes and sashes. Would you mind if I gave him a little kiss for good luck? Gaara's eyes widened in horror as the perverted Jonjin's hands reached for him. Despite the fact he was being manhandled, Gaara didn't mind as Naruto pulled him to his chest and turned, half hiding him from the touchy-feely. At least it was protection from the perversion of the Cyclops. Naruto-sensei was creepy. "Boy. Keep your hands to yourself, Kakashi-sensei." "Aw, that's not fair. You're just being selfish," whined Kakashi. "And you're being a pervert." An angry brunette appeared suddenly and swatted the masked man in the back of the head. "Aitai. Irukuoi." Gaara blinked as he turned to them and the thunderous rage on his face shifted into a giddy tearful smile. Talk about a mood swing. "Naruto. Congratulations. It was a beautiful wedding." With his ear pressed into the slightly abrasive cloth covering Naruto's chest, Gaara could hear his voice rumble under the surface as he laughed and replied, "Thanks, Iruka-sensei." The ex-Kazekage started slightly and studied with new interest, not missing the faint scar marrying his nose. Iruka was one of the precious people Naruto talked about constantly. However, Gaara had never actually met the man. "It's a pleasure to meet you," he smiled and offered the Ritide his hand. "Naruto talks about you so much, I feel like I already know you." Gaara blinked and looked up, Naruto scratched his head sheepishly. "Heh, Iruka-sensei." Gaara freed one of his arms to give the Chunin's hand an awkward shake and the teacher melded back into the crowd after another "Congratulations, Naruto." After that, a constant stream of congratulations, handshakes and shoulder pats seemed to flow past them. By the second, Gaara's hand was sore and he was tired of saying thank you. Taking advantage of Naruto's clinginess, he retreated deeper into the embrace of the blonde's arm. That way, people stopped trying to shake his hand as he appeared to be much too busy snuggling. Who knew Naruto could prove useful in a crowd? If Naruto had been around when he was Kazekage, he could have just had him shake all those hands and go through all those so-called pleasantries for him. Gaara was drifting off into a pleasant daydream featuring the joys of quiet and solitude when he felt Naruto tense. A tense shinobi was an uncomfortable shinobi. Or, an uncomfortable Gaara as Naruto was now holding him much too tightly. "Naruto?" Gaara turned, his cheek brushing against the dry cotton of Naruto's tuxedo to observe the source of the blonde's anxiety. "Sakura," Naruto was smiling, but his voice exuded the strain of that expression. Gaara glared at the pink-haired Kunoichi. Years of listening to Naruto's stories of her character had not left the Ritide with a complimentary view of the woman, despite the fact that Naruto held her in the highest regard. "Congratulations on becoming Hokage. I'm happy for you." "Thanks, Sakura." Gaara was glad the Chan had been dropped years ago. It was painful enough watching these two interact, trying to be nice to each other. Sakura glanced at him briefly but quickly averted her eyes from the Redeed's intense glower. So, her lips twisted as if to smile, but it looked false. How long have you two been together? Gaara blinked and opened his mouth to reply with a curt never, but the last of his breath left his lungs in a silent yelp as both Naruto's arms squished him against the blonde's unyielding ribsage. Breathless, Gaara realized a deep ominous rumbling in his ear was in fact the sound of Naruto's laughter as it bubbled up from his chest cavity. Well, vibrated Naruto's ribsage, a long time, if you know what I mean. Gaara looked up in time to see the blonde wink suggestively. Why on earth would he lie about that? Gaara had been under the impression that Naruto wanted to keep their relationship purely platonic despite their marriage and the accident at the altar, much less advertised the fact that they had a relationship at all. Which they didn't. They were friends, as Naruto had defined it for him years ago, and Gaara was happy with that. Oh, Sakura looked surprised, and from the devilish glint in Naruto's eyes, he was pleased with this. I didn't even know. Hee hee. Yeah, nobody did, really. Naruto lowered his voice conspiratorially. Gaara's a little shy, is he? Gaara glared. He was not. Sabaku no Gaara was the furthest thing from being shy. Oh, I see. The pink Kunoichi giggled. That's so cute. Cute he was not. But Naruto distracted him before he could express just how cute he was, preferably through violent means by sliding 2 fingers under his chin. Gaara's growl died in his throat and was reborn with a purr as Naruto's fingertips caressed the soft, sensitive skin under his jaw. Damn him. He should have never trusted Naruto with that secret. But that felt nice. Hee hee. I know, right? You'd be so surprised, it's like he's a completely different person in private. Like a kitten. Sakura gasped. No. Oh, yes. He may seem all scary glares and murderous intent, but behind closed doors he's a total cuddle bunny. Naruto's fingers slid around his mandible, behind his ear, and scratched there. Ah. I knew it. Temari's voice joined the girlish giggles and melodramatic gasps that had been growing in number as Naruto spun his tail. I always figured he was a sweetheart on the inside. Gaara could hear the new gossip spreading away from them. By tomorrow, there wouldn't be a girl in Konoha that took him seriously. However, his mind was preoccupied with restraining himself from begging for more as Naruto continued to rub and scratch all the right places on his head and neck. He was going to kill the trickster. After he stopped petting him, of course. Aw. Look how cute they are. Who's top, Naruto? Aka. It's obvious. Which one is not in a dress? Does Gaara like it rough, Hokage-sama? Naruto was chuckling uncomfortably by this point. Ladies. Let's keep the conversation in the comfort zone, nah. What's Gaara's biggest kink, Hokage-sama? Do you make him wear dresses in bed, too, Hokage-sama? Naruto, have you ever considered contributing a chapter to the Icha Letters edition? Back off, Kakashi-sensei. And then Naruto's hand stilled. Gaara's eyes snapped open. The crowd of yaoi fangirls plus Kakashi quieted as the adorable Redeed in Naruto's arms went from content purring to murderous growling. Gaara was going to kill the stupid blonde Jinchuriki. Hokage or not, husband or not, friend or not, he was going to die. In the most painful way possible. Then, everyone around them started giggling. No one giggled at Sabaku no Gaara. Aw. Little Gawa-sama is angry. He's mad because Hokage-sama isn't petting him anymore. Poor Gaara-sama. He just wants to be petted. And then, the scariest thing Gaara had ever experienced occurred. He was a ninja feared by most who met him on the battlefield and the container of a crazy, bloodlusting demon to boot, but this trumped all of that. The girls swarmed them. Their squeaky voices grated on his ears and their grabby hands were everywhere. They were invading his personal space bubble. It was horrible. But that felt nice. He couldn't help it, it was his ultimate weakness. Gaara purred and leaned into the many hands petting his hair, letting Naruto's arm around his waist keep him from falling over backwards. All the crowd of rabid women cooed. Okay. That's enough now. The petting stopped and Gaara opened his eyes to realize the ground was much farther away than it had been a moment ago. Gaara gulped nervously as he realized the only thing supporting him was Naruto's hands on his hips. Gaara's gotta go now. The Redeed squeaked as Naruto swung them around and started plowing through the crowd, still holding the X-cage aloft. Excuse me. Coming through. Breathing deeply to calm himself, Gaara wrapped his hands around Naruto's wrists and stayed very still. If that idiot dropped him, Gaara would kill him. Gaara-sama. Stay a little while. Come back, Hokage-sama. Finally, they reached the edge of the swarm and Gaara grabbed at Naruto's shoulders as he slid down into a more comfortable and less lofty position against the blonde's chest. Naruto started running. Over Naruto's shoulder, Gaara could see, as the crowd of colorful gowns waved and whined, some still giggling insanely. He shuddered and held on tighter. Naruto was panting when he finally set Gaara down in a secluded courtyard tucked away in the maze-like garden surrounding the church. Ami, Naruto pushed the hair back from his forehead. Sorry about that, I wasn't expecting them to attack. Gaara, disoriented from being carried like a rag doll by the fleeing blonde, stumbled to the nearest bench as soon as he was released. Naruto groaned as he plopped down on the flat stone beside him. Ugh, I've been on my feet for hours. Gaara scowled up at the blonde. He had no shoes and was wearing a ridiculous mass of heavy satin in public. Naruto didn't have the right to complain to him. Oi, Gaara, did you gain weight? Carrying you was like lugging Lee around with all his weights. Gaara snarled. He was at a perfectly healthy weight, thank you very much. How dare that idiot imply that Sabaku no Gaara was fat? Just kidding. Just kidding. Naruto chuckled nervously and waved his hand's palm outward in a peaceful gesture. Gaara could be so touchy sometimes. Suspicious teal narrowed as Gaara scrutinized the blonde. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief as Gaara looked away, satisfied that the insult was hollow. Gaara studied the rose bushes surrounding their courtyard coolly and Naruto watched him, searching his face for the hidden emotions that Gaara so rarely showed. He smiled thinly as Gaara's gaze snapped back to him. The Redeed's expression was read easily enough, what are you staring at? So? Gaara rolled his eyes. Don't you have some things to explain? Naruto blinked, clearly bemused. Don't you? Sighing, Gaara deigned to jog his memory. Why did you tell that pink-haired thing we were a couple? Naruto corrected him with a scowl, as he often had to do repeatedly whenever Haruno Sakura came up in conversation between them. For the millionth time, it is not that pink-haired thing, it's Sakura. Be nice, and Naruto scratched his cheek, changing his expression to abashed. Aren't we a couple? I mean, we did just get married. Gaara crossed his arms and started tapping his foot in annoyance. You know what I mean, he glared wordlessly. Naruto laughed nervously. I mean, well we are I guess. I mean we're not like obviously, but to everyone else we gotta be Gaara raised an eyebrow. It was a good thing he was significantly more intelligent than the blonde, or Naruto's babble would have made no sense to him whatsoever. You mean we should give the appearance of being romantically involved? For the sake of appearances? Yeah, Tebeo. Gaara rolled his eyes. I can't argue that that isn't a bad idea. The more credible we look, the less ammo the Konoha Council has. Plus, the public already appears welcoming to us as a couple. Gaara frowned, remembering the enthusiastic applause after their kiss. However, he sighed and fixed the blonde with a scathing look. It would do you well not to lie to me, Uzumaki. Naruto blanched. What? I'm not lying. Gaara shook his head. Naruto, I know you too well. You weren't thinking of the political ramifications when you discussed our relationship with those women. You were trying to get to that pink monstrosity. But Sakura. Gaara glared. I don't know if you're trying to make her jealous or what, and frankly, I don't care. But Naruto, you have to get over her if you want this to work. I am over her, scowled Naruto. Even if she was interested in me, I wouldn't care. Redeed looked skeptical. Really? Really? You don't believe me? Sighing, Gaara looked away and scuffed his feet on the courtyard slate. Naruto. The blonde huffed, crossed his arms, and turned his gaze as far from Gaara as he could within the limitations of the flexibility of his neck. I know you believe everything can be fixed with enough perseverance, but this is something that requires time. You both need to forget about each other for a while until all the bad things between you seem less significant, and then maybe you could be friends again. Naruto turned enough to scrutinize the Redeed out of the corner of his eye. Who are you, and what have you done with Gaara? The ex-Kage blinked. Pardon? Since when have you been an expert on relationships, huh? Oh, blushing, Gaara admitted, actually, most of that was Temari's words. She used to complain to me about Shikamaru all the time. Naruto turned back to his Redeeded friend with a smirk. I knew it. You little impostor, for a moment you had me fooled that the student had surpassed the teacher. You are still socially inept, right? But teacher? And I am not inept. Naruto threw an arm around his shoulders, and not for the first time that day, Gaara found his face crushed to the blonde's chest. My little student, you've grown so much. I'll teach you how to make friends. Naruto's hand rubbed the top of Gaara's head, but too roughly for his taste. Sometimes, even Sabaku no Gaara could not understand the unorthodox thought processes of Uzumaki Naruto. What are you babbling about now? He had to push with all his might to unstuck his face from the blonde's breastbone, and I'm not calling you sensei. Outing childishly, Naruto released his captive, but the mischievous twinkle in his eyes remained. That's okay, Gaara-chan, I won't mind, as long as you call me Sama. Brow twitching, Gaara fixed the Hokage with a glare. I will address you with the respect you deserve. Naruto found a pointy pale finger jabbed painfully into his left pectoral. Stop calling me Gaara-chan. I poke. Will poke. Not put up with it anymore. It's not funny. Naruto laughed. Ow, okay. Okay. Geez, your fingers are like kunai. Gaara harumphed and abated his poking, satisfied with his victory. Naruto's chuckles quieted and he sighed. He leaned back on his hands, a perilous position on the narrow bench, and kicked at the grass growing between the slate beneath their feet. Silence descended and Gaara breathed deeply, savoring the flowery garden air, so different from the arid Suna wind. Hey Gaara. What happened at the altar? Gaara turned to face Naruto, noticing the familiar pensive expression with a raised brow. Don't be sorry. Gaara smirked. The blonde looked at him, surprised. If we're going to be a couple, a believable one at least, then we should at least try to look like it. Naruto smiled vaguely and scratched his cheek, tracing the marks there. Heh, yeah, I guess. Of course, smirked Gaara. Smug bastard. Gaara snarled as he heard Naruto's mumble. I can hear you. I didn't say anything. However, before Gaara could get beyond rolling his eyes to attack the foolish blonde, they were interrupted. The Jinchuriki jumped Naruto to his feet and Gaara spun in his seat. The Iro-sennin. How long have you been there? The toad Sannin burped, making Gaara wince as the scent of alcohol met his nose and fell over with the force of his flatulence, rolling onto his back like a roly-poly, his limbs in the air and flailing. I knew it all along. Iro-sennin. Naruto tiptoed to the fallen Sannin, leery of the way he was rolling back and forth like an overturned turtle. You're not gay. Naruto jumped back with an eep and Gaara flinched, eyes widening as the Sannin suddenly leapt to his feet, a righteous finger jabbing the heavens with his exclamation. Then he fell on his face. Gaara caught the Hokage's eyes briefly, the other simply shrugged with a sardonic twist to his mouth. Iro-sennin. Are you okay? Okay, the Sannin flopped onto his back. You really had me going there, brat. I really thought you two were for real. Naruto's eyes widened and he glanced at Gaara. Had their facade been broken so soon? Drink in my Miss Rai way, he waved his fingers at the sky vaguely. Thinking I had failed you. I tried to teach you the wonders of women, but then you off and go for a guy. Naruto's eyes crinkled, trying to understand his sensei's words through the drunken slur. Sannin laughed. But. He jammed his finger at the sky, missing his intended target of Naruto's face. I stumble on you two and what do I find? You're a bunch of liars. Naruto hunched his shoulders and gave Gaara a sheepish look. Fix it, Gaara glared back. Iro-sennin, I don't know what you're talking about. Gaara and I. Jiraiya waved his finger in the air, still trying to get his aim right. Don't try me. I heard you talking. You must have heard wrong. Cuz Gaara and I are in love. Totally Tebeo. The Sannin laughed and lumbered to his feet. Oh. You can't fool me. Ah no. Ruth. It's true. Gaara nodded along. Then prove it. Naruto blanched and shared a look with his bride. You saw us at the ceremony, didn't you? We kissed. That means we're in love. What more do you need? Ah. Jiraiya slapped his knee, apparently finding this hilarious. Have you kissed? You're a bunch of idiots. What kind of crap are you trying to pull? It's not crap. Are you saying that you don't approve of our relationship? Naruto and Jiraiya paused to give the impressive owner of that cold voice their attention. Too bad the impressiveness was lost on the fact that he was wearing a wedding dress. Jiraiya renewed his guffaws. Both feeling awkward but trying not to show it, Naruto and Gaara joined hands. Yeah, Tebeo. You shouldn't make fun of us. We love each other. Jiraiya was on his back again, this time rolling with laughter. Love each other. Naruto bristled. Hey. That's not nice. I can't believe this. Naruto and Gaara shared a look. The Hokage leaned down to whisper in the ex-Kage's ear. He usually doesn't remember anything once he gets this drunk. Gaara nodded. They had failed their objective, aborting was the only possible solution. Jiraiya was wiping his tears from his eyes when he realized that the two objects of his humor were in the process of dashing behind the bushes. Hey. Come back, you brats. I still haven't told you that Tsunade wants to talk to you. He then burst into a new fit of knee-slapping guffaws. Are you sure he will forget everything? Naruto nodded. Yeah, it happens all the time. He'll pass out and forget everything that happened the night before. That's not very wise. He is Sannin again. Naruto chuckled and scratched his head. Well, he knows some cool things. Oh, yes, Gaara rolled his eyes. That reminds me. How the hell did you become Hokage? Hey. There you are. You love birds, you. The Jinchuriki froze and turned to realize they had crossed paths with Temari, along with the gaggle of girls in the ominous mass behind her. You're going to cause a scandal. Running off alone together during your own wedding party. Oh hey, Temari, we were just. Oh, Naruto Nai, you can call me Ni-chan. The blonde practically skipped her way over to them. What have you two been up to, Her eyes scrutinized them both, searching for ruffled hair, a piece of clothing askew, anything she could tell the rest of the girls waiting behind. Nothing much, I see. She scowled disapprovingly before clasping her hands before her and hopping on one foot gleefully. But look how cute you two are. Holding hands like a brand new couple. Startled, Naruto and Gaara glanced down to find that they were, indeed, holding hands. They had forgotten. Naruto blushed and released his grip as Gaara's fingers tightened. Looking up, the Hokage found the Redeed giving him a pleading look. A furtive glance at his sister and Naruto knew what he meant. Sorry, Temari. Ni-chan. Temari Ni-chan, but we've gotta go. Oh. Wait. The woman waved her hands. I've got something for you, Gaara. The ex-Kage's eyes widened and he tugged on Naruto's hand. This wasn't good. Temari procured a pair of white stilettos, lips edged with lace that matched Gaara's dress. You forgot these. Eh? Naruto glanced between the shoes and the boy was now frantically pulling on his arm. You're not wearing any shoes. Odin wants to see us. Gaara burst out suddenly. There was no way he would wear those monstrosities. It was bad enough with the dress, but he at least deserved to be able to walk. Jiraiya's parting comment came in handy now. She does. Naruto blinked. Oh yeah, she does. He waved at Temari and you know how she doesn't like to wait. But it won't take long. Too bad, gotta go, bye. Gaara finally succeeded in getting Naruto's hulking mass to move and they set off at a trot away from the girls and his crazy sister. But wait. Aren't you uncomfortable going barefoot? Gaara. Gaara didn't care. Wet feet were better than tripping on his face every time. And through it all, they had forgotten again that they were still linked by their hands. Tsunade didn't appear too angry when they found her waiting by the bar. In fact, she seemed perfectly calm, which was more unnerving since it was so rare. There you two are. The previous Hokage greeted them with a welcoming smile, swirling her glass of sake expertly. Hey, Bachan. Breath being short, having done all that escaping in a heavy wedding dress that constricted his lung capacity, Gaara used Naruto's closest arm as support. So you wanted us? Oh. Tsunade lifted her cup so fast, Naruto and Gaara recoiled in fear that its contents would splash them. I was going to ask you something. It quickly became obvious that the Hokage was at least mildly tipsy. And your question is, Gaara prompted. I was going to, she slurred. Oh yes. Do you prefer hick? Doggy style or hick? Missionary position. What? Gaara blinked. What is she talking about? See, I have this bet going. Our sex life is not to be betted on. Naruto thundered, accusing finger in the air and coming very close to starting one of his angry rants. Eyes widening, Gaara's mind finally connected with the meaning of the previous Hokage's inquiry. Missionary position. Stopping suddenly, Naruto looked at Gaara with wide eyes. Damn. Tsunade slapped the table hard enough to leave a dent. I should have known. Scowling at the now disappointed Kage, Naruto turned and pushed Gaara ahead of him to lead him away. Naruto? I can't believe her. Betting on us like that. What's a missionary position? Blinking, Naruto came to an astonished stop. You mean you don't know? Well, doggy style I know, because Kankuro is always bragging it is his favorite, but I'm not sure what the other one is. Naruto nodded. Missionary position, it's AWH when the guy's on top of the G-girl, and he scratched his cheek and lowered his voice, realizing there were more than a few people within earshot. The girl's on her back and the guy pretty much all eyes between her legs, you know. His voice was squeaky from embarrassment by the time he finished. Oh, Gaara recognized the description. I didn't know it had a name. That's what we did, missionary position. Naruto squeaked. Oh well, that back then was a improvised version, yeah. Gaara nodded. Yes, I understand, now. It seems I answered correctly according to my assumptions. I do prefer that over doggy style. You, now. Naruto continued to squeak, feeling out of his depth. Sometimes, Gaara's ability to discuss such embarrassing topics in such clinical tones seriously perturbed him. Yes, I'd rather be looking at your face than the floor. Oh. If that's the case, what do you think of doing it sideways? Kakashi-sensei. Naruto whirled. How long have you been there? The Jounin's single eye crinkled. Long enough to know your wife doesn't know what missionary position is. Honestly, Naruto, what kind of bedroom have you been keeping? A good one. Thank you very much. Oh? Is that so, Gaara-chan? Gaara sidled closer to Naruto, Kakashi was giving him that creepy look again. Well, he glanced up where Naruto was giving him an expectant glare. I suppose. Naruto exploded. What do you mean, I suppose? Gaara bit his lip in chagrin. More than just Kakashi were now looking their way with raised eyebrows, and Gaara realized he was doing a rather poor job at pretending to be Naruto's lover. Knowing it was time to start trying harder, he racked his brains for memories of what he had seen of lovers. He came up with a lot of his sister and her lazy husband, blocked the images of Kankuro and his constant stream of girlfriends, and recalled a lot of movie scenes, none of which were very helpful, but he decided it couldn't hurt to try. Naruto quieted instantly as he found Gaara's body pressed against him, his eyes widening at this unexpected turn of events. Standing on tiptoe, Gaara's lips brushed Naruto's as he spoke with his best impersonation of the come hither voice. "It seems I've forgotten what you can do." Naruto shivered, easily mesmerized by Gaara's heated look, unable to even blink. "You'll have to show me all over again." Overwhelmed by the proximity and the suggestion in Gaara's look, though it may be, Naruto did the only thing he could think to do. Gaara's eyes widened in surprise as his mouth was invaded unexpectedly. Again. Naruto's arms wrapped around the startled Reed and crushed him to his chest, effectively holding him captive. Letting his head fall back under the force of Naruto's mouth, Gaara willed himself not to bite as Naruto's tongue aggressively explored him. Out of the corner of his eye, Gaara could see that more than a few eyes were directed their way. Now good, it seemed their performance was working. But then the unexpected happened, albeit for the second time, and Gaara gasped, stiffening, as warm fingers found the soft flesh under his jaw. Shukaku purred in the back of his mind, melting into a sandy pile of mush at the caress, and took Gaara with him. Naruto must have noticed the silent plea for more as Gaara pressed harder against him and tilted his head to give his fingers more access. With an animalistic rumble, Naruto switched from stuffing his tongue down Gaara's throat to lapping at the sensitive skin that had been bred to him. In that moment, while one of his most sensitive areas was licked, nibbled, and sucked, Gaara released several things. 1. Shukaku moaned like a whore. 2. It was not as easy to control his own body as he thought it was, and 3. He would not kill Naruto for this, even though he was sure under any less pleasurable circumstances he would have such a public display. In fact, he might kill him if he never did it again. Someone cleared their throat for the third time, with enough blatant disapproval to break through Gaara's suddenly hazy mind. Naruto looked up from a pale shoulder to glare at the interruption. He pulled his lips back to display the sharp fangs he had gripping Gaara's delicate skin gently. "Mine." He growled around Gaara's flesh. "Yes, of course." Haruka blinked. "No one's trying to take your wife from you, Naruto." Kakashi sniggered behind him. Gaara turned his head slowly to look at them, blinking, as if coming out of a trance. He swallowed, willing his body to cool down, and told a complaining sand demon to find another corner of his mind to masturbate in. "Naruto," he tugged on the tufts of blonde hair he had grabbed in his pleasure. "Save it for tonight." Naruto growled, a needy rumble punctuated by the tightening of his jaws over the junction between Gaara's neck and shoulder. Biting his lip, Gaara willed himself not to enjoy the hot brush of Naruto's breath over his bruised, moistened skin. He tugged harder. Later, this was no place for such things. Finally catching the point, Naruto detached his maw. "Now, put me down." Gaara had to say a minute later, as Naruto did not seem inclined to release him any further. The abrupt drop jarred Gaara's teeth as he found that somewhere along the way his balance had become wobbly. Giving the pouting blonde an annoyed glare, Gaara made a note to himself to talk to the boy later about proper manhandling etiquette, and honestly, while his enthusiasm was commendable, they were only trying to fake romance, not a porn show that would also have to be discussed. "Well, anyway, Naruto, Gaara." Jiraiya turned to the blushing academy teacher. "Do you need something?" "Well, I was just wondering, when are you planning on starting the toasts?" Gaara blinked. "Ah yes, we're supposed to do that, aren't we?" He turned. "Naruto?" He was startled when he realized how close the blonde was. With an annoyed grimace, he pushed gently on Naruto's breastbone until the boy was a full arm's length away. "Shall we?" Naruto's eyes flashed over the crowd, watching them watching him, before grinning as he settled his gaze on Gaara. "Well, I'm starving." An arm hooked Gaara by the waist, forcing him to fall into step with the blonde. "Aren't you, Gaara?" Looking up at the smiling blonde suspiciously, Gaara couldn't help but feel that something had changed, though what it was, he could not decipher. "I suppose." Naruto's smile remained obnoxiously wide as he guided the Reed to stand beside him among the round tables in the dining area. Holding his glass aloft, Naruto addressed the many Konohans watching them patiently from their seats. "Oi. We're gonna start the toastings now, so listen up." Gaara suppressed a shiver as a hand slid down his spine. He would definitely have to have that talk with Naruto soon. Granted, Gaara, having always received the short end of the stick when it came to physical affection, craved the sensations just like Naruto. However, having Naruto's hands constantly wandering over his body was starting to make him twitchy, and it didn't help that Shukaku was trying to convince him to do inappropriate things. Gaara looked up with a raised brow when Naruto failed to continue. "Hey Gaara." Naruto leaned in to whisper. "What am I supposed to say for the toast?" "Toasts, Naruto, not toasting." He scowled at being corrected. "And you're supposed to say your vows, I believe." "My vows?" Naruto's eyebrows came together. "What vows?" Gaara rolled his eyes. He should have expected something like this from Naruto. "Your wedding vows. And perhaps an inspirational speech, as Hokage." "Wedding vows?" Naruto rubbed his chin. "Nope, don't get none of those. Don't have any of." Yeah, don't have any." Gaara sighed. "Are you telling me you don't have anything prepared?" Naruto scratched his cheek. Am I supposed to?" Gaara rubbed at the bridge of his nose, willing the oncoming headache. By this point, the crowd was filled with murmurs as they became restless. Sighing in resignation, Gaara realized he would have to pick up the slack. "Fine, I'll start by following my example." The crowd obediently fell silent as Gaara tapped his glass. He paused. And realized he didn't have anything prepared either. Shukaku snickered and supplied his own incredibly offensive words, which Gaara promptly ignored. He decided to improvise, a task he was not new to after years, as Kazekage with a council that constantly tried to catch him off guard. "Many of you here may be skeptical or perturbed by our union made today." The words flowed easily, even though Gaara wasn't entirely sure where they were taking him, "and I do not blame you. I suppose we do make a rather peculiar couple." Pausing, Gaara felt strong fingers slide over his own, squeezing gently. Having not realized how tense he had become, he was surprised when he felt himself relax with Naruto's reciprocation of the comfort the Red Deed had given him at the altar. "However, we hope that you will all be able to accept us in time." Gaara turned slightly so that he could see Naruto, remembering all the sappy things Temari and Shikamaru had said about each other during their toasts. He racked his brain for something similar to say about Naruto. "We never expected to go public like this. I'm sure we must appear very pompous to choose such an extravagant time to reveal our relationship. Might as well go along with Naruto's lie that they had been together for longer. It was, at the very least, useful." Naruto's hand had gotten bored with Gaara's fingers and was now caressing his way up his arm. They would be talking very soon because Gaara did not appreciate the distraction when he was trying to talk. However, Gaara twitched, trying not to pull away from the tickling brush of fingertips. "I don't think any other time could have been better." He turned back to the crowd, his voice gaining strength as he finally found a direction for his speech. "No longer will we have to hide, to pretend, oh, the irony." Shukaku was quick to point it out. "To run we can face the world, as we are together. There is no better way to lead in life than to give yourself to it entirely, as we have to each other." Gaara blushed lightly, as the combination of Naruto's caresses and Shukaku's comments was hard to ignore. "Just, as a flower struggles in the shadows, so have we. But in the open sunlight it can flourish and make the world more beautiful as it blooms, and so we will, so that Konoha, too, may benefit." He paused, gathering the words for his next point. A smattering of applause made him blink. He hadn't even finished yet. "Yeah. That was a good speech, nah." Waving his glass and yelling, Naruto encouraged the scattered clapping into a thundering applause. It quieted shortly after, as he gestured for calm. "Anyway, I'd have to say that Gaara's much better with words than I am." He glanced at the scowling Redeed, gracing him with a friendly grin. "But he certainly knows how to make everything sound pretty, nah. I don't know if I can follow something like that. I'd just sound dumb compared to him or whatever." A smattering of chuckles bubbled from the crowd. "So," he glanced at Gaara again, before giving the audience an even wider grin than before. "Gaara looks good, yeah." An answer of screeches from the girls and an occasional wolf whistle from elsewhere made Gaara blush. Konohans were crazy. "Yeah. Pretty sexy in white, isn't he?" Naruto laughed and pulled in the glaring Redeed, "and she's all mine." Gaara looked up with a lidded gaze. He got the impression Naruto didn't know what he was doing. "Anyway, the blonde continued to bumble, scratching his cheek in his nervousness. "I guess Gaara said it already, that, you know, how cool it is to finally come out in the open." Both Jinchuriki blinked as they received several cheers. But, what he didn't say was how happy I am that he's here. I mean, it's cool that I've got my little sex kitten to come home to. Gaara glared as the crowd burbled with girls' giggles. "But what I'm really glad I have is my best friend." Blinking, Gaara glanced up at the blonde. He had never been told he was the best. He wondered if it was true or just part of the act. But Naruto's private smile for him told him it was. Blushing and not quite understanding why, Gaara averted his eyes. "I feel like I've robbed Suna of their Kazekage," Naruto continued. "But, even if I wanted to, I don't think I could have stopped Gaara once he got this whole idea into his head." Since when has Gaara been the sole initiator of this? It was Naruto with all the enthusiasm. And not to jinx it or anything, and, as I'm sure you noticed, Konoha's doing pretty damn good. Enthusiastic affirmatives were yelled, and Ninja nodded. Well, Naruto's chest swelled, and his voice imitated the growing pride in his expression. It's about to get better. Gaara closed his eyes briefly, avoiding the image of Naruto's fingers, in the shape of the victory V thrust into the air. He shouldn't have expected Naruto to be able to maintain a dignified appearance for more than 5 minutes. That's right. I'm the best Hokage that ever lived. And with Gaara and me, there's no stopping Konoha. He shouldn't have expected Naruto to suddenly acquire humility with the Hokage shroud either. Jiraiya peeked his eyes open to see Naruto had jumped up onto the table beside him, was pumping his fist in the air and yelling at the top of his lungs. Oh, Kami. And to think, he was married to this guy. Why had he thought this was a good idea, again? Gaara sighed as Naruto used his superior mass to haul the ex-Kazekage up beside him. He secretly applauded himself for not going into a murderous rage at being handled so roughly, as he patiently let Naruto pull him closer, and in an amazing display of restraint, he only so much as twitched. As Naruto's hand landed on his behind. There may have been at least 5 layers of chiffon and satin between them, but Gaara could feel the weight of Naruto's hand there like the weight of the sun in Wind Country, and Gaara's pale posterior did not take well to sunlight. It didn't help that Shukaku found this hilariously entertaining and would not shut up with his highly inappropriate suggestions. Gaara was slowly counting down from 10, trying to convince himself it was an anger control exercise and not a countdown to Naruto's death when Naruto bent and surprised him with a kiss. Again. With the crowd hooting and cheering up a frenzy in the distant background, Gaara suddenly forgot why he had been thinking this was all such a bad idea. The party went on all afternoon and late into the evening, much to Gaara's annoyance. Naruto, however, was perfectly at home among the crowds, and his grin seemed to grow wider as the time passed. The alcohol he was consuming in small but constant amounts may have contributed to this. By the time the crowd had slimmed to the select and the last of the drunken parties had passed out or been escorted home, the moon had been out for a long time. Naruto, having spent the majority of the late evening leaning heavily on Gaara's shoulder in an intoxicated haze, turned to whisper in his ear, "It's full tonight," when he noticed Gaara's eyes were trained on the sky. Gaara wasn't sure whether to smile or shudder at such a statement. Full moons were a double-edged sword for him, they were beautiful, but also agitated Shukaku. Even Naruto professed to feeling the hypnotic call to his inner nature when the moon was at its brightest. Gaara theorized that most Jinchuriki felt it to at least some degree. A beautiful day, a beautiful night, a beautiful wife, Naruto went on, breathing stale sake on his neck. Gaara wasn't sure he'd ever be comfortable with that title. He could care less when other people said he wasn't the sort to be affected by labels, but it felt entirely different when Naruto said it. He had been Naruto's friend for years, but now he found himself loaded down with the expectations of his new status. The physical affection he could handle, the hugging, the groping, even the kissing, which, he had to admit, was not all that unpleasant, but it was the emotional undertones that had Sabaku no Gaara reeling. Naruto was an affectionate guy, and even before the ring was on his finger, Gaara had experienced a random hug or spontaneous pat. However, now that that was an expected thing, he had access to a level of emotional connection he had absolutely no preparation for. He should have seen the flaw in his deception plan from the very beginning. Naruto was a good actor, but only because he happened to possess an unnatural talent for looking happy in any situation, no matter how upset he was. Gaara was surprised he was doing so well, appearing to be in love with him, since he had thought such a complicated act was beyond the blonde's skill. It could mean one of two things. Either Naruto was a better actor than he had thought, or there was some truth in his affections. Gaara was both afraid and strangely enthralled by the latter possibility. Naruto had always been special to him, being the first to see the boy inside the monster and reaching past the murderous shell to find the wounded child inside. It couldn't hurt, he felt, in light of their newfound union, that they could share a little intimacy. He had long pondered on such a possibility ever since the night that ignited new life in his belly. For the umpteenth time that night, Naruto pressed his lips to Gaara's shoulder, sighing blissfully. The ex-Kazekage had to bite his lip to keep himself from shaking the blonde off, as the two other people sitting at their table sighed, one with a "so cute," the other with a mumbled troublesome. Gaara cast his eyes over the sparse midnight crowd, wondering if he could sneak off without alerting anyone to his absence. "So, when's the honeymoon?" Blinking, the Redeed shifted his focus back to his sister, who had been peppering their conversation with discomforting questions while swirling red wine in her glass all night. "We haven't got the time for one," he answered with a sigh. He had long ago resigned himself to satisfying Temari's curiosity, if only to stop her from taking matters into her own hands. The last thing he needed was his sister prying into their relationship beyond questioning. Haven't got the time. But it's your honeymoon. Naruto pressed a grin to his neck, his weight nearly pushing Gaara off his chair. I've got all the honey I need, right here under the moon. He slurred ridiculously. Gaara rolled his eyes as his sister giggled. Shikamaru, bound to his chair by Temari's will, sighed and spoke up for the first time in a long time. Speaking of post-nuptial traditions, why are you two still here? Don't you have other things to do? Despite himself, Gaara flushed. It wasn't due to the sexual implication, but the penetrating intelligence in the genius's eyes that made him wonder if he knew. Shikamaru. The shadow nin earned a whap on the head from his wife, but even Gaara could tell it was a playful and painless gesture. What kind of things? Naruto lifted his head to blink dumbly. Shikamaru and Temari started, and Gaara dropped his head in embarrassment, and to be married to such a… Oh. Temari was grinning mischievously all of a sudden, and Gaara's stomach tipped at the foreboding expression. She leaned forward to whisper, though Gaara had to wonder why that was necessary, since there was no one around to hear them anyway. Are you pretending to be virgins? That's so romantic. That threw Gaara for a loop. What in the hell was romantic about? Never mind, he didn't want to know. No, Naruto's just drunk. I'm nude. And stupid. Hey. But Naruto's retaliation was no more than a pout before he tiredly collapsed against his shoulder again. Shikamaru snorted, rolling his eyes as he shifted on his elbows. Well, it's easy to see who holds the leash in that relationship. Temari hid an unladylike guffaw behind her hand. Gaara had to think for a moment why that should be funny before Shukaku graciously supplied him with an image he was entirely unprepared for. Naruto's hand pressed against his knee and his breath brushed over his ear. Do you like that idea? Nah. Gaara-chan. His heart nearly stopped at the possibility that Naruto had read his thoughts. There was no way he had the awareness and power of inference, especially in his current state, to make that sort of connection. Well, Gaara, are you going to dance with him or what? He blinked as his sister spoke. He had missed something, he thought. Come on, I want to dance. I don't, but he was already being pulled from his seat and the dance floor was but a couple steps away. They had already danced once that night, the traditional opening dance. Naruto had been unable to stop giggling the entire time, and Gaara's toes still smarted from that particular experience. Dancing with an inebriated Naruto, he imagined, would be even less fun. The band, perhaps seeing their approach, segued from a trotting caprice to a slow waltz. That, in the least, was a blessing, since he didn't need Naruto tripping over his feet more frequently than 3 beats to the meter. Predictably, Naruto was sloppy. Instead of the proper hold, he pulled Gaara into an embrace and rocked them both to the music. Gaara sighed and let himself relax with only an air of resignation, one he had held almost the entire night. It wasn't all that much of an uncomfortable experience, however, despite his discontented expression. Naruto was a warm shelter from the cool night breezes, and a few minutes of periodic motion in the moonlit courtyard found Gaara leaning into Naruto's shoulder with eyelids drooping. At length, Naruto turned his face into Gaara's hair, his hot sake breath heating his ear. I like this. He whispered. Gaara hummed in reply, lulled into passivity. I like having you. Eyebrow raised, Gaara looked up for clarification. Naruto grinned at him blurrily, not offering any further explanation and perhaps missing Gaara's inquisitive cue entirely. Then he kissed him. It was slower and gentler than any previous, which had been tinged by a rough urgency, so Gaara saw it coming in time to dodge it. He did not, however, and welcomed Naruto's lips, something which the disorienting surprise and unyielding force of the latter had not given him an opportunity to do. He could not deny the pleasurable addictiveness of it. Naruto, he had long ago decided, was a person he trusted implicitly. To be held so by such a person gave Gaara a feeling of a very comfortable intimacy, a sensation so uncommon in his life that it was very quickly becoming precious. Humming happily, "You're mine now," as they parted, Naruto watched him with a warm, albeit drunkenly glazed, gaze. Right, Gaara-chan. Understanding the context, but not the meaning, Gaara lifted one hand from Naruto's shoulder to wave it between them, as far as this will make me. Naruto squinted at the metal band that winked in the moonlight and, in a hazardously uncoordinated move, clasped that hand in his own. He grinned as the matching gold shackling their fingers clacked together. As their eyes met again, he said, I, too, belong to you. Gaara understood the message then and smiled as well. Neither of them would be alone anymore, and they had learned long ago that was more precious than whatever they had given up to get there. We belong, maybe not elsewhere, but together. Yatubeo Naruto swayed against the music, taking Gaara with him. Until death do us. Thanks for watching my video, leave a like if you enjoyed my video, and also do consider subscribing to my channel for more awesome content. See you next time, till then sayonara.